Yo, what is up, guys? It's the host with the moist voice, and you're tuned in to the Wake Up Wednesday podcast and the Wake Up Wednesday weekend podcast special. And make sure to go to our Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok where we have way more content. Anyways, guys, let's get into the episode. All right, gotta get it out there. You know what I mean? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Another day in paradise. Like I said, didn't want to be late again, so we're back. Not too much like every other week. I always say it's not too much, and then next thing you know, I go on a fucking full-on rant. But I've been doing these WSU Tech orientation leadership thing. You know what I mean? What's crazy is I actually did it because it's money involved, right? I mean, why else are you gonna do stuff? But it's $300, but I don't get paid until October through a stipend. So it's gonna go through, like, it funnels into my account, and so if there's no balance on the account, then I get the 300. I pocket the 300, but it helps. You know, school's expensive, and by spring I'll be going to WSU, and I'm nervous as shit for that, because not only, let's backtrack for a bit. So the leadership orientation thing is pretty exciting. So, like I said, first did it for the money, but then now it's starting to become something else. In a sense, it's like, don't want to be so cliche, it gives me purpose. No, I'm just kidding. But it definitely satisfies me to know that I get to meet a lot of new faces and answer some questions for, like, new students to WSU Tech. You know what I mean? And it's crazy. It is just insane to think that just last year, I'm pretty sure today, or around the summertime, I wanted to go back to school, and not even just to go back to school, because my first couple classes were like business operations, stuff like that. I remember going into the campus and just talking, going like, well, I knew that FAFSA, so if I had extra money on the FAFSA, it's going to help out with my wage, and I was doing, DoorDash, Instacart, all that good jazz last year with a crazy fucking ex. And so now, looking back at it after a year, I was getting baked on shrooms, toxic as fuck relationship, all this stuff, and I just wanted to go to WSU Tech and kind of milk it for its FAFSA money, kind of screw the government over. But it is insane how 1 year changes you, really. Like, especially after a breakup like that, which was much needed, like really needed. Not only for my sanity, but also for her sanity as well. It just there wasn't any universal cosmic energy or reciprocity within that horrible relationship. And after watching David Ramsey for a bit, it's in the Bible, it's very theological that some marriages get rocky, but you go to marriage counseling for that in order to fix it. But guess what? We're dating, and so if it didn't work out, it just didn't work out. And it's way, way better to leave a toxic relationship after even knowing yourself that you've tried your best to mend any broken wounds, but they're still wounds and they're still going to be there, and people don't forget. And it takes two adults to kind of get over those speed bumps, because what else are you going to do with the speed bump, right? Well, that was last year, and I took so it was summer, fall, and then by springtime, basically wintertime, I wanted to get serious, like serious. And really, the whole epiphany was not only after that breakup, but also moving out and moving in to some toxic, also toxic roommates. It's like, who put themselves in this position, though? You know, like, there's no one else to blame but myself for not digging a bit and finding out those answers that I needed before moving into such toxic relationships, in the whole sense of friendships and relationships. And so I have a tendency to be jumping into things, but nowadays, and it's crazy to say nowadays, because like I said, it's only been a year. You know, you weren't yourself, really yourself a year ago, but you're also not yourself. You weren't yourself a month ago. You learn something new every day. So were you really yourself yesterday? You know, and we'll get back into all those philosophy things, but yeah, so after learning those two bugaboos, especially, it only took me 3 months to really get to know that I don't really know people. You know, we had so many dynamic issues within the whole house that it made me open my eyes even more that, well, am I doing the right thing smoking? You know, one of the roommates, and I'm pretty sure she was a compulsive liar and probably smoked as well, but she told me she didn't smoke. But then I'm over here chiefing up every single day, 8 blunts a day, twice on Sunday. And she would come out just to kind of chit chat with me, dialogue. I'm sure you guys met her, Daphne, on the podcast, and so I've had wild guests on this podcast. So you guys are also joining the journey. So if you want to listen to my high self with other peers, other known people, I guess you could say, go back about a year and go fast forward just a few more months, and you'll see a wide range of people on the podcast, for basically a wide range of minds, you know what I mean? And so they were raised differently, and so at least now I can carry on a sober dialogue. Unless it's the weekends, then I'm kind of inebriated by the alcohol, but at least now I know who to talk to and when to talk to. Anyways, so she didn't smoke at all, but then, she would come outside and I'll offer her, and she didn't have to take it. I'm not putting a gun to her head, but, it's there, peer pressure, I guess. Not even pressure. It's just a question. It becomes pressure when they're kind of like, no, just do it, do it. Yeah, come on, what are you, square? Don't be such a square. That's pressure. You're putting on actual heat in the moment, and so that's pressure. But nowadays, people are conflating asking questions as pressuring. I mean, like I said, I'm getting to know people, and so I try to have a homegirl on the podcast multiple times, and I guess this is now pressuring when I ask multiple times, because you can do one and done. But when they also tell you that, yeah, I'm just trying to find time, and I will be more like, I'll be down to do it, I'm just doing this and that and the other, I guess I dig a little bit like too deep, to where it's all like, well, I seen you got some free time, why not let me get 30 minutes, maybe an hour of that free time? And then it's kind of like, oh, well, it's just I'm not prepared, and this and that and the other, and then it just becomes a whole big thing of, you're pressuring me, I feel pressured. And it's like, hey, I'm sorry if you feel pressured, I didn't mean for it to come off that way. It totally was just misconstrued, and I wanted to let you know it was just a question if you wanted to come on in, because I know we have different points of views on things, and so I love dialogue, and hopefully I get another person that I have different views with, which is my sister-in-law's father, Brian. And he's an old head, very wise, and we definitely get to talking on a lot of things. I thought he was conservative, but he's not, and so that's gonna definitely fascinate me to tap in a little more on it, in his mind. because I mean, I'm not sure what his political stances are, but he's definitely wise on a lot of other sorts of things, practical things. He's also very analytically inclined as well, has a lot of investments, so we have a lot of agreeances on that. But when it comes to the political standpoint on what should be allowed in this country, it's really different. And so I really want to dialogue with him, but having conversations with people in different different viewpoints is definitely in it's definitely something that I want to do more often, especially if I'm not high like I was last year. And so we come to fall, winter, I want to get serious because being around these sociopathic, narcissistic assholes in a house that you don't really, like I said, you don't really know, and their skin's already starting to peel, and you're starting to see their true form, makes you want to do some things different. And so by January, I converted to full fucking carnivore. And then got back into my faith a little more, and started taking advice from advisors. So switching up that circle. You know what I mean? And what's crazy about this orientation leadership is we have 3 questions, but the main question that I want to focus on, obviously being in the field of psychology, is what am I most nervous about? And nervousness ties into anxiety. And you have too much anxiety, it could lead to depression, And I guess you could say when I was at Butler Community College and went in 3 times, 3 times, because I did do Butler, try to go to school again after this whole episode, I think 2020 or so, right after the COVID lifted, wanted to go back, and I only did a class at a time. I think it was art appreciation, and I got a C because of final, but that obviously didn't transfer, you know what I mean? And so there's that part. But at the same time, I didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do still. Even the counselor advised me to go just liberal arts. Liberal arts. Why not liberal arts? Now looking at it like, what the fuck am I going to do with a liberal arts degree? Jesus Christ. I was really going through a time and a half there. But no, yeah, I started right after high school, wanted to go into criminal justice, then switching my major into business administration, I believe, dropping out, going back to school for business admin, dropping out again, and then just going on a wild ride with all the dealings and women, and just being on this high scope of wokeness, to be honest, accepting everyone for how they were and all this bullshit, and not seeing that my life was spiraling down. But also my parents, honor thy mother and father. And so you really got to listen to the people that raised you, but at some certain point the student does become the teacher, and so they can be as wise as they want in their most practical way, but even a student becomes analytical and practical by the teachings of others. And so that's where academia comes in. I always knew I had a sense of wanting to help people in their pathological ways. And so I mean, I remember literally moving out the first time and meeting this chick, was my first, by the way, and she was at WSU. And so I'm over here smoking up every single day, going like, score. You know what I mean? And this is when I was 20 years old, so 6 years back, but 7 years now almost. But definitely, I remember telling her that I wanted to become a psychologist. This is way before Jordan Peterson too, and even in high school, just telling everyone I want to be a social worker, want to help people talk through their problems. And I always knew that talking was a big part of what people don't do nowadays, and I love doing it. And so if it helps me in a sort of light, then why not? I remember something that I do get that a lot of people don't get is teachings from TV shows and movies. They're entertaining, they're entertainment, but nowadays I kind of break down a lot of things and wonder what the director was meaning by it. And everyone does that. Oh, well, don't dig too deep, it's just entertainment. But it's like, well, he had to write a script and had to have that reread and basically passed through a board in order to make an actual film of the whole script. And so something had to catch a lot of other people's eyes, and especially if a film is very popular, it had to catch the eyes and subconscious of a lot of other people, even though if they don't want to consciously um, analyze it or even acknowledge its whole significance. And so one of the TV shows would be probably, I mean, Phil of the Future. I know this one episode, I forgot what it was, but the dad gets, and this all ties into a third grade incident where, you're in elementary school and they have those days where it's pajama day, show and tell, bring your pet to school day, something, you know what I mean? And so I think it was pajama day, and so I obviously wore my I think like probably like a Ninja Turtles not sweatpants, but pajamas, PJ bottoms, and then a regular shirt, maybe even some shorts. I don't even know, but I'm pretty sure it was some type of PJ bottoms with like some type of animated figure on it, with a t-shirt with an animated figure, maybe a SpongeBob, I don't know. Just think of a chubby third grade kid with that on, and then some Winnie the Pooh slippers. And I remember going in, they were in my backpack because I was a little embarrassed already because they were the only slippers, but I knew that there was going to be other kids with slippers, so I didn't want to be left out, you know what I mean? And so I whip them out, put them on, and I think it was kind of a little show and tell because I remember being telling the teacher like what type of stuff that I had on, and the whole class just bursted laughing. Probably Snickers at first, but they really started fucking going for a world of a time after I quoted this one TV quote from Phil of the Future, which was the dad gets pie on his face, and then there's a caveman that they got from the future when they went back in time, and the caveman started laughing, and then I think one of the kids said, "Dad, are you okay?" or something like that, and the dad's all like, "Hey, it's all good," or something in the lines of, "I'll be fine as long as I remember to, like, I don't care if anyone laughs as long as I can laugh at myself." Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, I quoted that exact thing, and the whole third grade class started bursting out laughing, which obviously forced me to cry. And so the teacher's all like, maybe you should just sit in the back of the class away from all these jerks, away from all these kids. And yeah, go in the back. And I remember getting some sympathy from chicks, but, you know, that was a true moment where I knew that I've always been called like, you're such an old head, or you're very wise at least. And so I never, they're compliments, but I never take them seriously. And just reflecting back on incidents like that, it kind of opens up your mind on why I had the proclivity to want to help people. And I mean, there's no rules to this thing we call life, but the greatest thing that J. Cole has said is, you can't take it when you die, but you can't live without it. So go out and get the bag. Like money, all these kids, these people that say money doesn't, oh, money's just printed every day, you don't need money. Well, then why do you clock in? Well, then, and these are questions, like these are genuine questions. Why do you clock in? Why don't you make your own clothes? Why don't you live like the Amish? Why don't you have a cow in the back? We have chickens. We still buy eggs from Sam's Club because they don't produce as much, and there's 7 people in this house. So we're a quarter of the way there. But I still need money to function. Not function, but definitely function in this whole thing we call society. And unfortunately, we're not back in 10,000 BC where we just hunt and gather like all these hippies want to do nowadays. And we live in a capitalistic society in which the world revolves around money. So if you don't want to play the game of this life, I suggest moving to open lands and living off the land and see how you do, and then you'll probably come back on a 9 to 5. Like this one lady I met in Colorado. Literally, she lived out in the forest or something, and then comes back. I met her at the gas station where I was getting sticks, and then she tells us, because I was with a friend at the time. I was with an ex. Okay, I'm not gonna fucking lie. Anyways, but uh, literally tells me that she was living in the forest of Colorado, and then for about 12 years, and then came back to society. Not gonna lie, she was kind of weird too. So even she knew that nowadays you kind of need this thing called green money to fucking function. So if it wasn't such a big deal, why are you working every single day for a man that worked a little more harder than you in order to sign the check that pays your bills? You know? Like, why do I want to actually work for someone else? Why not have people work for me voluntarily as well? I don't want slaves. I want average workers that know they can get to work for above minimum wage, and at least I have the satisfaction to know I'm putting food on their plate and clothes on their backs. And then to some people it goes like, well, that's horrible. Why would you want to do that to people? Why would I want to provide jobs for people? Is that what you're asking me? What the hell do you want to do? Oh, we should all live in a communal farm and community and grow our own vegetable. Go do it. Unfortunately, the people that I hire want to be wealthy. The right people that I hire want to own a home. They want to have long generational wealth. Unfortunately, you're a narcissistic asshole who literally cares about what you think and want free sex whenever possible. Because what else do you do in a community sense, quote unquote? You're going to be monogamous? That's what you're going to do? That you're really going to be monogamous? You're not going to share a female? Oh, well, maybe. Oh, okay, yeah, because I was in your shoes, dude. You're really not that different. This is the thing about wokeness nowadays. And we'll get back to my position now in academia, because I'm pretty sure I've spilled a lot about it, but it's very different now with this whole leadership orientation thing and meeting the new faces. Anyways, this whole thing with wokeness, we had this little debate on, well, I have an older brother, Hiro, who is really condescending in a way. He has his own way of living. It's worked out for him. I just have a different way of living as well, and so it makes for really good dialogue. Come see the show live, and one day I'll have him on the podcast, and we'll record it too, like live. But it's very entertaining. But yeah, no, like whenever I say like, oh, well, get woke, go broke, and it's like, well, I'm woke. You know what? Leave people. He goes like, I'm woke. Leave people alone, and people should just go by their ways, and I have my ways of teaching, and this and that and the other, and the universe and cosmetology and not cosmetology, but the cosmic sphere of the universe and energies and this algorithm and all this other bullshit. And he just can't figure out what the fuck's going on here. But, he said, I'm woke. And I was all like, well, you're not really. Because if you were, then you would be, like, your house, you would have, like, gay pride flags everywhere. Wouldn't mind that, your already twins are non-binary. You'll probably pin those things as non-binary. You'll probably have the proclivity to side with these liberal Democrats who want freedom all over the place and hedonistic tendencies all over, everywhere. And so in my opinion, there's two different types of wokeness. So the wokeness, so there's searching the definition of wokeness. It actually started with the black empowerment. It's basically being aware of discrimination and white privilege, if you will, And so the synonyms for woke would be awareness, evolved, um, liberty, or like liberated, all that good jazz. And in a sense, those two words, I want to focus on those two words, liberated, is a very good focal point. But when it comes down to this, and it even said that that was in 2010, so that was in the tens, and it changed rapidly in 2019 when the LGBTQ plus AA 645B people started taking the woke movement and going like, well, if it works for these minority of people, we're an even minute amount of people, so we should use it. I'm very self-aware. I know what people are saying about me. I'm actually non-binary. I identify as this. I wear the flag proudly. Yeah, kids should probably cut off their own dicks and inject themselves with testosterone at a very young age and stop reproducing because there's too much kids in the world. This is the way they think. And so I know that my older brother doesn't think like that. And so I feel like he's in the realm of the other sense of wokeness, where, in my opinion, it was the whole enlightenment movement. So if you're woke, you're enlightened, you're liberated from the confines, or at least now you have the self-awareness that the confines of this thing we call society is now broken. So you've broken away from the status quo, but you're really not, because you're still clocking in, clocking out. A good point from my sense of this other woke definition, not like how these leftists use it. Woke would be the spiritual enlightenment to self-sufficient maximal responsibility, the fulfillment of self-sufficient maximal responsibility, spiritual responsibility, if you will. Because I think Joe Rogan said this best. He knows he's interviewed a lot of billionaires, and they're advocates. They are enthusiasts on psychedelics. And so I'm no stranger to psychedelics, but when you do it and then you take advantage of that spiritual enlightenment, you kind of veer off the way and want to go back to those hunter-gatherer ways, the hippie forum. But if you take it in a way of, well, now I'm aware of what's really going on. I work for someone else. I have someone else pay my check that tells me what to do with that check. And I have to keep doing this until 65, until I can collect a little bit of scrap called Social Security. Why would I want to do that? Some people see it clearer than others. Some people don't at all while they're on these psychedelics, and then go like, well, maybe there's deeper answers, so let me take more. And then they just go on this whole hippie craze. And so the thing that I think, also a little theory of mine, is that the hippies are just people that do understand that. So they've broken the confines of the 9 to 5. They don't want to do that anymore. And so instead of creating, being generative, they become stagnant in a sense of back to norm, back to form, back to normalcy, the Homo sapien normalcy of hunter-gatherer, because they're lazy and don't want to do actual generativity things. They don't want to generate any more wealth to the whole society, because the capitalists, these hippies, hate capitalists, but they're the ones working for clothes that was made by, how they say, underpaid workers, but no one's forcing these underpaid workers to work. We have this whole movement about now about like Hondurans, El Salvadorians coming in and taking the black jobs. What are black jobs? Well, it's basically jobs that the minority, black people and Mexican alike, had, but now are getting underpaid, or at least getting replaced by underpaid Africans, underpaid El Salvadorians, underpaid Venezuelans, underpaid Haitians, underpaid you name it, Peruvians, Brazilians, all this stuff because of this open border, and so it's had an influx on the job search, and that's where the stock market crashed too. A lot of people are just looking at face value. The stock market crashed. Oh my god. What are we going to do? What do you own some stock? Do do you even own a stock? No? So shut up. Like literally, shut the fuck up. You're that crazy uncle that owns no real estate, yet has a thing or two to say about real estate. You know how crazy that fucking sounds? Yeah. It's like it's literally as crazy as kids going on social media, listening to a couple of TikTokers that read a couple of Google articles about therapy and the top 10 therapeutic suggestions, make a video on that. All of a sudden everyone's a therapist. Where's the PhDs? What happened to masters? Are we just not doing that anymore? you what what's that piece of paper for? You don't need a piece of paper. Really, because with this orientation leadership, I'm meeting a lot of kids running for that piece of paper because they know they're going to make some serious bank. They know they can start their own business. And this is just tech. I'm sure there's going to be a wide range of students, because I still strongly believe that in university there's going to be a shit ton of mindless, stupid, ridiculous, pointless degrees being handed out for like gender studies and African lesbian group diplomas. But at tech, this is where the real money makers are. Engineers, nurses, actual future entrepreneurs. I talked to this interior design. At first, when I went to WSU Tech, I was like, interior design, what is that? What even is that? And then I talked to this one girl who's also an orientation leader, and she's all like, well, I've done my research, and you can make $80,000 to $100,000 being an interior designist. And I'm all like, well, like, where do you do that? How do you get? Well, you talk to a contractor. Oh, fuck. Oh, so when you build the house, it has to be furnished. It has to be painted. It has to have accents. It has to have, how do you call it? A realtor value. It can't just be put up walls, put on some fucking insulation, drywall, brick, mortar, call it a day. You have to paint that shit. You got to make sure that the windows are in the right place. You got to make sure shit is even. You got to make sure the blinds are there for the showing. You have to make sure. And so you work with realtors, you work with contractors, you work with blueprint, even schematics. And so there's a place from tech into the actual real world. And I implore people to at least look at what they're doing right now, because if you don't like capitalism, you're in it. Do you punch in? Do you punch out? You're in it. Sorry, not sorry. Unless you're like the Amish, making your own clothes, churning your own butter, milking your own cow for that butter. You're in it. So get comfortable and stop bitching. But then I say in the darkest sense, no, keep bitching. Keep going, because we need people, like we need more sheeps. We need clothing. We got to get wool somewhere. So keep on keeping on. Cuz one day my son's going to create a restaurant, and then my daughter's going to create the clothing factory, and you're going to buy the clothes, you're going to eat the food that we make. And I'm going to establish a library where your kids are going to have to go to study, because we provided the computers and libraries. So take a good look at those last names on those buildings and really think about what the fuck you're doing, because so far you're a piece in the puzzle. You're another cog in the wheel. You're another bolt in the plane. So keep going. We need more sleep people that think they're woke and use this whole terminology and not really take advantage of what spiritual enlightenment and highest form of responsibility is. You know, luckily, what's crazier too, 34 minutes in, Jordan Peterson had to get it out there. It can't be a Wake Up Wednesday podcast without mentioning Jordy Peterson here. But even though I already mentioned him, I think like at 20 minutes. But one of the things that he said about lectures when he lectures is he doesn't start his stadium lectures until the crowd is silent, and then he's silent. So it kind of creates some suspension. With this orientation leadership, I try to one good thing that I seen today, and I didn't do my spiel today, but I already done it twice. One of the kids posted on the post-it notes about that one big post-it note going like, what am I most nervous about? And it was a Socrates quote of, I don't know what I know. But to that, I say, how does he know? Well, how do you know that? And so we kind of backtrack, erase the whole thing, because if that's philosophy, if you like Greek philosophy, I like the Tao Te Ching. And I believe somebody kind of condescendingly questioned the good words of one who says a lot does not know, yet one that doesn't say anything knows everything. You know, so basically talk as little as possible and not be a know-it-all. But then even the guy that wrote that had to write that. So how does he know? Right? So you can't really have your cake and eat it too. You really can't. So why not know a little bit more than the average? Why not? Why not? I remember telling the girl Daphne, who went to college and dropped out because she wanted to go for forensic criminal justice, but like I said, dropped out, went on this whole escapade to England for college because it was quote unquote free, but couldn't even handle the free academics, so had to come back to the USA and live on daddy's dime. And she came from a house of not wealth, but definitely privilege of not having to starve. And so she had the opportunity right there in the hands, but some people just fuck it up. You know, I had the opportunity a couple times. I had to learn 3 times in order to come on back and really, really set a goal. And so one of the things that I always, within 60 seconds to 2 minutes is just goal setting. And one of the slides is about goals. We at WSU Tech, there is such things as SMART goals, but it's just so much acronyms you can't remember. And so I take the philosophy from successful people in this world that are generative individuals that actually provided jobs and individualism to people just like you and me. And one of the things from, well, obviously quotes. And so I touch a little bit on philosophy from Zig Ziglar, a wonderful success coach and entrepreneur, about if you aim at nothing, you're sure to hit it all the time. And so have something to aim. And then I go into theology because I carry the cross, and we all need to bear our cross a little more often than not. Sin was used as a Greek terminology in archery. So if you sinned, you missed the mark. You've missed the target. And so you have to be aiming at something in order to hit it. And so that's exactly what brought these people to WSU Tech. They have a goal in mind, whether it's money, influence, which is the best. Learn how to control that. They never teach you that in school. Make sure every dollar has a purpose. Budget, live below your actual means. and establish wealth. And maybe you too will look at other millionaires as hard workers instead of inheriting fools, which is a fallacy in and of itself. That terminology about all these millionaires just inherit all their money. Wrong. About 80% of millionaires surveyed in America worked harder than you. So stop your bitching, get to work. Cause oh yeah, you're on the clock. You want to get out of this rat wheel? Create your own business. A lot of those HVAC techs that are going to WSU Tech right now, and engineers, welders, nurses, and interior designers, culinary chefs will become their own entrepreneurs. I don't know the numbers, but all of them, if they have the tenacity and the actual goal set in mind, will create their own business. Plumbers, $100,000 a year. HVAC workers, $120,000 a year. Blueprint contractors could possibly make $200,000 a year if they go get it and if they want it bad enough. But if you want to get a tech degree because you heard this guy can possibly make $100,000 and then work under a boss that's writing you forever and you're only making 60, and you haven't opened your eyes yet and realized that you can actually do this solo dolo, that's your issue. Don't blame society for your ineptitude to take advantage of every opportunity and tool that other humans have made and set aside for you. And so we get a one chance. And how Neil deGrasse Tyson said, well, is I think there's like one in like a 500 million chance. It's a lot. And you've been chosen to play this game we call life. So make the best out of it. Stop your whining and go out and get it, because no one's gonna get it for you. Like I said, one day the teacher has to retire and the student becomes a teacher. So, would you want to know a little more than the average, or stick to being the student and not raising your hand and not awakening the spiritual responsibility of grabbing your life by the balls and riding that thing to the next town over? Because you got to get the hell out of Dodge. You know that whole saying about get the hell out of Dodge? Dodge was like a horrible city, filled with robbers and burglars and all this shit. So that's where the big saying comes in, we got to get the hell out of Dodge. So like, yeah, look at the guy in the mirror, look at the girl in the mirror, and tell me that you want to get the hell out of that Dodge, of one inside your mind. And so I had another discussion, not at the WSU Tech, but a discussion with my older brother that I recently mentioned, Hyro, because he's so fascinated on ego death. But if we take the Freudian sense of ego, we have three. We have this big thing called ego that what we call is ego, but I say it's the self. How you perceive yourself in the greatest manifestation of this thing we call reality. We have three characteristics of a big iceberg. And it goes the id, the ID. The id is the deepest unconscious way you perceive yourself, and then the superego, which would be the conscientious way to perceive your own thoughts and patterns, and then the ego, which is in the middle, that brings those two and manifest it into what you hear right now or see in the mirror. And so a lot of characteristics come to how do you perceive yourself, which comes to self-esteem, which comes to your abilities, your skills, how do you take negative talk to positive talk, all this other stuff. But in the greatest simplification, it would be the id is like Satan on that left shoulder or right shoulder, whatever you want. The superego would be the heavenly spirit, the angel, telling you the good things. You should probably do this and keep doing it. So the Satan's over here, Lucifer is telling you, no, you can do that later. That while the ego takes both of those and saying, well, we can find a mixture of both. So for example, if you have homework and you know that, so this is we're going to take the whole id. You have homework, the id is going to tell you, go do something else. Come back to that later, and you'll never do. And then you'll end up failing because you've set it aside for so long. And so the superego would tell you, well, you should probably sit down for the next 4 hours and do this in order to get an A. But in any sense, that's really not possible, because no human being can sit down for about 4 hours, maybe a select few, and actually pay attention to one piece of work for that long, let alone try to get an A. But it's definitely good positivity, right? And then you have the egocentric, the middle. This is where we get incrementation, or intervals of study time that increment into progress. Yeah. So what does that mean? Well, instead of doing your homework for 4 hours, you dwindle it down to 30 minutes. So taking a big chunk of that, going to do what you want for an hour, coming back for 30 minutes, or let's not say an hour, let's cut it, let's go 50-50. Let's do 30 minutes of work, 30 minutes of doing whatever the fuck you want, take a little break, 30 minutes back, 30 minutes of doing whatever the fuck you want, and then why not hightail it for an hour, really knock it out. You just completed 2 hours worth of studying within the confines of 3. And all because of incrementation and what was it? Incrementation and intervals. The greatest marathoner in the world didn't just run the first time. He had to do it in intervals, which accumulated into increments, which then manifested into the first place trophy, the ultimate goal. And so I'm really trying not to see, or at least don't want to see, these new people going into college and or university with the wrong mindset of, I don't know what to do, I'm anxious, there's so many routes, there's so many pathways that I can't figure out the one thing that I want. Because that was me at 18, that was me at 19, that was me at 20 or 22. Until we're here at WSU Tech for a year now, since last year, switched up the top 5 people I can call upon, set down a few things that I never knew I could probably live without, so sacrifice, and followed a few standard commitments. Almost sounds like commandments if you're theological. but they didn't work for 2,000 years for no reason. And there's a reason why we don't believe in Greek mythology anymore, and it's called mythology. Oh, but hope maybe one day. Well, welcome to Today. Well, I don't think it's going away anytime soon because it's the largest religion in the world, so clearly there has to be some type of point. But that's if you're theological. In order to get realistic, we look at what causes anxiety in the whole psychological sense, and that's because you have so many pathways going through your mind that you don't know which one to choose. It's like the Doctor Strange situation about manifesting 100 different outcomes, and you could only choose one. Even though you know that you can see yourself and vision yourself in these different scenarios, only one will come to light in the next second, in the next 2, in the next minute, in the next 30 minutes, in the next hour, in the next day, in the next week, the next year. If you see yourself somewhere in the next year, then you'll probably get there. There's going to be speed bumps along the way, but you just got to get over them. So what do you do to minimize and try, because you can't mitigate it, but you can minimize anxiety. It would probably be the sense of, think of it, like I said, you have so many different pathways, 100 different pathways, but if you only had 10, so you chop it down 1/10 of the size, now you're thinking. So write down 10 goals that you want to accomplish in the next year. Because not a lot of people can do this. And it might take you a day, it might take you a week, it might take you an hour, it might take you 2 decades. Don't care. Write down 10 goals. And this is what a successful entrepreneur has also said, and someone that's was a motivational speaker and has helped many others in their path to success. Whether it was sales, career, opportunity, building wealth, all that. 10 goals. And aim at one. So now you just took the whole subconscious dilemma of a web of opportunities and a web of situations, a web of different situations. I'm pretty sure I already said that. And you dwindle it down to 10 individual targets, 10 individual tin cans, and you only have one BB. So clearly you got to put one BB into one of those cans. So choose a can, because you can do it. Just got to pick one. Once you pick that one, all of a sudden, that proclivity of overthinking has now dwindled down to 1/10, maybe even 100th or 1,000th, and has manifested into one ultimate center point of responsibility. Because no one's going to get there but you. And it's your job to maneuver through the road of possibility in the least amount of movements. There's tools that you can use. If you acknowledge that there's speed bumps and all you gotta do is get over it, you'll start to watch out for speed bumps. You'll start to watch out for the certain things, the certain road hazards. One year, we came from smoking up every day, horrible relationships with people, loss in faith, loss in a path. Because like business administration to psychology, What a turnaround, but I always knew it all along. I just had to get rid and sacrifice a few things in order for that one specific goal to pop up. Couldn't have done it without listing out at least 10, and not one of those 10 were wanting to smoke up all my fucking weed every day. Not one of those things was, for lack of better words, make 100 to 1,000 friends on Facebook. It was all about responsibility, purpose, generativity. How can I create something that other people can use? Until I figured out it's not something that people can use, but how can I manipulate people in order to get them out of their own manipulation and trench that they dug themselves so deep in? That's the darkest side of psychology. You put yourself in this situation and you've decided to blame everyone else, and I'm here to untwist that, manipulate it back to its working proper sense, manipulate that anxiety and turn it into peace, manipulate that sense of doubt and depression back into working order, back into a whole. Because you're deep. And so these are the things that I'm really passionate about and would love to see new faces achieve their ultimate goals by taking the highest manifestation and route to responsibility. And unfortunately, the woke has taken another word like pride and turned it against itself. And it's tough to see people with that mindset and not reach their ultimate potential, because they'd rather rely on feelings than facts, and facts don't care about feelings as much. But that's why you came into my office. So what's going on? Not a lot of people get to talk. Not a lot of people get to dialogue back and forth. They're usually just, they clock in, they clock out, they eat dinner, whether they made it themselves, wife made it, they heated it up. Some people really do get lost in the sauce and taint it with a bit too much vinegar. But even orange chicken needs vinegar and sugar to make something so delectably palatable that you want a full scoop of that shit. So find something and aim at it. Cock it back and let it fire. Roll, baby, roll. That's what I love about David Ramsey, is those baby steps and listening to a lot of other people call in going like, I'm on baby step 1, 2, 6, 5, whatever have you. There's only 7, but the first 3 you're in it for the longest. 4, 5, and 6 you do simultaneously, but you're also in that for a little bit, because now since you have no debt, your income is your powerfulest tool. Because whether you didn't realize it or not, it was always your powerfulest tool. You just decide to dig yourself deep in a hole and create that a habit, and create the habit of listening to other people broke as fuck in debt saying that everyone has a mortgage, everyone has a debt, everyone has a car payment. Please. We're going somewhere and I don't need your negativity, okay? Quit your bitching and get away from my circle. Because you're a bit too much vinegar for this sweet and sour chicken. You did. Anyways, I killed myself. Had to get something out there, guys. Oh my god, I went on a whole fucking rant. Anyways, it's time for me to shut this bad boy down until the Wake Up Wednesday weekend podcast special this weekend. Hopefully I get Oscar on because it's just been me. And so also some different guests. Like I said, hopefully Brian joins. Maybe I'll invite a new peer that I met at WC Tech. Anyways, guys, have a beautiful night and I'll ABC you on the Wake Up Wednesday weekend podcast special.